Coming up today on Zestology, supplements for longevity that will make you feel good in the future and will make you feel good now. Kind of like a win-win situation. Hi, I'm Tony. I'm an author, presenter at Sky Sports, and years ago I went to the jungle and got ill. Very ill. So this is my podcast adventure to find more energy. It's packed with biohacking, science, health tech, supplements, and some of the most well-known experts on the planet.
This is something I spent 4 months of my life doing with electrodes glued to my head so that you can do a lifetime worth of meditation.
Decide what you don't give a fuck about, which is something you don't care about.
Some of it gets quite out there.
I had some stem cells sent up to my house that I had stored, and then I injected myself with mannitol.
And we even hack hangovers.
Alcohol is poisonous. So is water and oxygen in the wrong dosage.
So that's my podcast, Zestology. Live life with energy, vitality, and motivation. Welcome back to Zestology. I'm Tony Wrighton. Thank you for listening, and a really good response to last week's podcast on Toxaprevent. And I know a lot of people have got involved in Toxaprevent since they've listened to that podcast. So if you haven't caught that one yet, it's with Dilly Kular. And Toxaprevent is something that is a supplement that has definitely helped me. And I think it's really exciting, actually. I mean, genuinely, there's not many that I can sort of see myself taking in the future, but Toxaprevent is one of them. So I wanted to do another podcast on supplements today, and that is what we've got, and I'll tell you about that in a second. But before that, you might have heard at the start of last week's podcast me complaining about my very noisy computer. There's something about certain MacBooks that means that the fan comes on and it sounds like you're in a wind turbine. Well, since then, perhaps the gods conspired to get rid of this issue once and for all, because I got back from a lovely day out on Saturday, sat down on the sofa and inadvertently sat on my computer, which it turns out isn't a very good idea, and they're not quite as robust as you'd think they are, these computers, and the screen was completely fooked, for want of a better word. And I went into the shop and it was going to cost about 500 quid to get it fixed, or I could get a new one and trade the old one in with the broken screen for about 300. So actually, as it's turned out, I have a new computer, and hang on, let's just stop for a second. It's completely quiet. There's no fan in this new MacBook, so that's better. That's a lot better for podcasting, isn't it? And so I'm quite pleased about that. And the camera's better as well. So it's not been cheap the last week or so, and I would highly recommend you don't sit on your computer, and I have bought insurance for the next time that happens, but apart from that, all good. Right, let's get on to another supplement-based podcast today. Today's guest is with the founder of Oxford Healthspan, Leslie Kenny. I recorded this podcast a couple of months ago, and I have to say I really enjoyed it. And Leslie is one of those people that I just felt inspired talking to, and felt like we had a lot in common, not just talking about her and her products and what her company is doing. She is from Southern California. She's an entrepreneur and a Berkeley and Harvard Business School graduate, and she has come up with this company, Oxford Healthspan, that is making supplements for longevity. More specifically, Premture, which is a premium Spermidine supplement. As you know, longevity is one of the things we look at on this podcast. Not necessarily because we want to sort of be like Dave Asprey and live to 180, but because we want the years that we've got to be full of health and life and free from inflammation and disease. And it seems like this supplement might well be particularly helpful for that. I've been using it not just in terms of the supplement, but for face masks as well. Opening up the capsule and putting it in a little face mask. But let's hear from Leslie Kenny on Zestology. Leslie, it is lovely to have you on. Thank you for coming on Zestology.
Thank you so much. It is such an honor to be here. We met probably 5 years ago, and it has taken this long to really be able to sit down together, and I'm so pleased that we are.
I know. And just before we go any further, you've had quite a big day today, haven't you?
I have. I actually presented this morning at a closed-door conference in Osaka to many distinguished scientists and members of the commercial world, as well as the Nobel laureate in medicine or physiology, Yoshinori Ohsumi, who won his Nobel for discovering the mechanism of action of autophagy in 2016.
Wow. So, I mean, a big day for you. Were you feeling nervous beforehand?
I was really nervous, and I was the only non-Japanese speaker presenting, so it was no pressure, 220 people listening, right? But that seemed to go down well, and of course, I have nerves coming onto your show too, right?
Yes,
the Nobel laureate, Tony Wrighton, right? Who put you together.
Oh dear, it really doesn't sound very impressive when you put it alongside a Nobel laureate. But I wonder if it's been quite interesting to me recently. I was listening to Rhonda Patrick talking about what she does before a presentation. She says she always exercises before a presentation because she thinks it fires up her brain. And I thought that was so interesting. I've been trying very much to work out in the mornings, and I do find that I work a lot better. My brain just seems to fire better when I've done some good workouts, some good exercise early. Did you do any sort of particular hacks, or did you exercise before your presentation?
I did. The hack that I used is something from Japan. It's called Katsu. You might have seen it at one of the biohacking congresses that we attended. And it is blood flow moderation. So these are bands that have pressure built into them. And while you are exercising, that pressure actually builds up the blood in a limb, and it actually increases nitric oxide in the body.
Right.
And sends a message to the pituitary that you are lifting much heavier than you are, and to send growth hormone. But the CEO of Katsu, Steve Monatonis, who's a lovely guy, wonderful friend, he actually suggested that before I do presentations, that I do that to kind of G myself up.
That's a great idea, and you must introduce me to him because I'm really interested. Yeah,
absolutely. U.S. Special Forces use it. Absolutely wonderful product, and it does build muscle. I'm unfortunately consummately lazy and want to do things with big impact with as little investment as possible. And Katsu is one of those things. I still have muscles like a boss, and I don't do very much for them.
Wow, I'm sold. And so when we met, you weren't involved in Spermidine at that point, were you?
No, I wasn't. I had trained as a bulletproof coach, and I think we met at a conference in Santa Monica.
Yeah. And what good times.
Such good times.
I hope we can do it again.
Meet again.
Yeah.
That's right. I was so bummed that the Health Optimization Summit was moved this year to next year. But
tell me about it. Yeah.
I'm sure Tim will, he always brings us good conferences. So
yeah.
In any event, yes, I wasn't doing that then. However, I was starting to fundraise for some Oxford University tech spinouts in cellular renewal, regenerative medicine. That was really my sweet spot because I'm a former autoimmune patient, and the idea of the body regenerating and healing itself is very appealing to me, but very much part of my own personal journey. So while I was fundraising for some of these companies, I was introduced to a scientist named Katja Simon. She's an immunologist at Oxford. And she and her lab were looking at this unusual molecule called Spermidine, which has the ability to trigger autophagy or cell renewal and repair. Obviously, that's foundational to our health, because if our cells are not renewing and repairing on a regular basis, that's kind of like the bricks of your home not repairing. So she was working on this with a particular focus on Spermidine's ability to rejuvenate the elderly immune system. And this has since been shown in vitro, so in a petri dish with human elderly cells. And the next step will be using that in vivo with humans and seeing how this actually helps their immune system as they age.
Yeah, yeah. And spermidine is obviously, it's a very hot topic in the longevity world at the moment. Funnily enough, I thought of you yesterday, I think, because I saw that David Sinclair had tweeted something about being involved in a project around spermidine as well. And,
That's
he is
right.
obviously the longevity expert. He's been on my podcast as well, and he's a really interesting chap. So obviously a lot of the big guns in this world are involved in it. It's one of those ones where I think people who listen to this podcast regularly will have heard me talk about it quite a lot. And it's one of those words that goes in, isn't it?
Yeah.
you tend to notice it. But I think it's just worth re-emphasizing exactly why you are so excited around spermidine.
Well, I think the reason is really back to my own personal story. You know, at age 39, I'm 56 now. At age 39, the same age that my father died, I was diagnosed with lupus and rheumatoid arthritis. I was actually trying to get pregnant at that time, but not having any success. And when I said to the doctor who told me I had lupus, but wait, I can't have this, I need to get pregnant, she said, well, I think you probably have 5 years left. Your cytokine levels and your tumor necrosis factor levels are so high, it's as if your body is fighting cancer. You had better think about getting your affairs in order before thinking about trying to have children. And that really made me angry, upset, frustrated, because I think, like most Americans, and we have to remember that 50% of all Americans today live with chronic illness.
Yeah.
I was expecting an answer because the people in white coats have answers, and I outsourced my answers to them. It was at that point that I realized I have to try and find another way. I've got to forge my own path, because the person in the white coat is saying, I don't have answers, and you have a very finite end game. So it was at that point that I began to look at trying to just quell inflammation in the body and whether or not I could actually reverse my physical condition. In fact, what I was doing was trying to reverse my premature aging. And I think so many people in the Western world actually suffer unknowingly from what's called inflammaging, or premature aging caused by inflammation. And inflammation can happen due to stress, right? We're all stressed due to COVID. We're all stressed due to work, paying off a mortgage, taking our kids to school, dealing with elderly parents, maybe relationship issues. All of that stress leads to inflammation, which then can lead to premature aging, and then these chronic diseases. And after 6 months, when I went back to my doctor to retest for these illnesses, they were gone. What I had done was I had reversed the inflammaging in my body, and I had effectively reversed the aging process. So the reason why spermidine is so exciting to me is because by triggering autophagy, or cell renewal and regeneration, we are able to repair things in the body. We can try and avoid the aches and pains of aging.
Yeah.
We can, right? Exactly. Just those things that we associate with getting older, loss of independence, frailty. Is there a way to avoid them? And it seems that with a molecule like spermidine and triggering autophagy, as well as inhibiting hallmarks of aging, we can.
And you weren't taking spermidine at that point?
No, I wasn't taking spermidine at that point.
No. But that is obviously now something that you think is even more powerful. I mean, that's an amazing story, and obviously, if spermidine can do the job, then it's very compelling.
Yes, exactly. Well, one of the things that I did do, which was intravenous immunoglobulin, that I did 2 rounds of that, and that quells the immune system. It basically takes a dysregulated immune system, which I had, and then regulates it and puts it back into homeostasis. And what it seems that spermidine is able to do is also help with this regulation of various functions in the body, whether it is to do with immunity or with cardiovascular health or neuronal health. It does seem to help bring things back to balance.
When we were hanging out at the Bulletproof conference all those years ago, I suppose it wasn't that many years ago, but I mean, I always think it's a bit of a sort of blessing in some ways that I've had a few health challenges and I've thought a little bit more about my own path, because, you know, actually then you start to seek areas you can improve. And that's obviously what happened with you.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So then
it's life affirming when you realize that you have the power to change your own biology, right? And for the better, that you aren't limited by what the statistics say. And again, since 1 out of every 2 Americans is diagnosed with a chronic disease right now, well, what do you say to them? You're going to be, you have to live with this for the rest of your life? That, as a patient, was something I really couldn't stomach. So I think that anything that we can do to help the body perform better and get back to homeostasis, even if it doesn't solve the ultimate problem, but just makes us better, makes us healthier, is worth trying.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, I suppose in some ways you've given me the unsexy answer for why we should be taking Spermidine, but there's probably some quite exciting things that could really grab people sort of short term as well as long term. You know,
well, if you want to talk about sex, we can go there too.
No, well, actually, I wasn't thinking of that. But I mean, if sex is a byproduct of taking Spermidine, yeah, let's definitely talk about that. I was thinking more of, you know, the benefits that you've told me now are more like long-term inflammation, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But presumably, if you're mentioning sex, or if you talk about, I mean, obviously this podcast is about energy. Presumably, it can work for short-term stuff as well.
Yes, well, it definitely can. So we make, first of all, we should be clear that we make spermidine and other polyamines in our body all the time, just like other plants and animals do. It is absolutely everywhere. It can't be killed at high heat. We manufacture it in great quantities in both our gut biome and in our tissues when we're young. So we get approximately 1/3 of our daily needs met from tissue production, another third from gut biome production, and a final third from food intake. Now, in order to manufacture that, our tissues, our bodies, need to take 2 different precursors. One of them is SAMe, which is needed for good mood. You may have heard about SAMe before. Another thing that we need is ornithine, which then converts to arginine.
Yes.
Now, arginine is a precursor to nitric oxide production, and nitric oxide is famous to all men who need to know because it's the secret sauce in Viagra. So if you are using up all of your arginine to make your own spermidine, then you are taking it from your body's ability to make nitric oxide. Because spermidine is so important to the body's survival, right, to cell function and optimal function and survival, the body will necessarily use arginine and SAMe in order to manufacture it. But if we can supplement it, then the body doesn't need to do that. So that is one way that it. Another thing that you can do is you can also try to get the gut biome back in tip-top shape so that it's also able to manufacture this as well. So we're just trying to save the SAMe and the arginine there for other better purposes.
Yeah, that's really interesting because when we decided to start trying to have kids, I read Dave Asprey's Better Baby book.
Oh, yes.
And he recommended a whole host of supplements, of which 2 of them for men he recommended was L-arginine and L-ornithine.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Yeah, which he said, you know, would improve motility of sperm as well as sperm count. And I think also he said there is a byproduct that it might make sex a bit better as well, which I think I probably noticed. But it's very interesting that you're talking about that with relation to spermidine as well. And I did feel like it actually sort of helped me sleep a bit better when I took L-arginine and L-ornithine as well. So L-ornithine is not a particularly well-known or popular supplement to take, but I'm very interested that you've mentioned that.
Yeah. And one other thing, just while we're talking about sex, is sperm, Spermidine. I mean, you can't really think about the molecule without thinking about sperm. And the reason why is spermidine is so important to the survival of the species that it is found in sperm in great quantities. That's because the DNA, it's tiny. Normally, DNA wraps around a histone, which is very big. But in order for semen to swim faster and be tinier, it wraps around the spermidine and makes it tiny, a really tiny package of DNA. And that is important for motility, as opposed to having this giant histone carrying the DNA around. The other thing is that it is in high quantities in human breast milk. So why is that? Well, again, the survival of the species. The infant gut, actually, well, you probably know, is only one cell thick. The tight junctions can be very porous. And in order to tighten them up, spermidine actually helps with that gut integrity.
Does it?
So it does. And that is perhaps one of the reasons why it is in breast milk. I mean, breast milk also has fructooligosaccharides, which are not there for the baby. The baby can't digest them. They're only there for the colony-forming units that the baby gets into its gut as it passes through the birth canal, and it gets those from the mother.
Yeah.
Which is why we did our supplement, Primadine, together with a prebiotic, also with a fructooligosacharide, and with supplemental spermidine. So it's together.
Yeah.
So as it is in nature.
So it can tighten the gut lining, the junctions in the gut lining.
Yes, that's what the studies show.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, one of the things I'm always sort of on red alert about with new supplements is sort of side effects, because I am Mr. Sensitive, really. I do get side effects from various supplements. And I know that, I mean, I have a bit of a confession to make, because you sent me some Primadine to try, and I have tried it, but so far I've only tried it mixed into a face mask, and we'll talk more about that as well. But I thought, you know what? I'm chatting to Leslie on this podcast. What I'll do is I'll talk to her, and then I'll start introducing it a little bit more.
Perfect.
I'm slightly nervous about is because sometimes I get a reaction to histamine causing supplements. I know you've got the prebiotic in there as well. I just wondered if that would have a reaction, but presumably it's in quite small quantities, is it?
It is in small quantities. I would expect if there was any histamine response, it would be to gluten, which is a lectin. So some people are very sensitive to lectins. I myself am sensitive. We are not universally sensitive to all lectins. Each of us are bio-individual, and so some of us will be sensitive to red pepper, some to aubergine, some to neither, but to potatoes instead. It really depends, right? So gluten obviously is an issue for some people. This supplement and the other ones that have the full spectrum of polyamine, so it would be spermidine, spermine, and putrescine, they tend to be derived from highly concentrated wheat germ.
Yeah.
There is a very, very tiny amount of gluten in there. I am gluten intolerant. I carry one of the celiac genes, so heterozygous for that. And I take it. Amy Lamott, one of our advisors, is also very gluten sensitive, also an autoimmune survivor like me. She takes it. She doesn't have a problem. So it is something that you probably know if you are always gluten sensitive. If you're celiac, I wouldn't recommend this. But if you are sensitive to minuscule quantities, then don't take it. If you are only sensitive if you eat, say, I don't know, a third or a quarter of a croissant, you're probably going to be fine. This is the equivalent of 1/100th of a slice of bread.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. We'll be back with the podcast in 1 second, but today's podcast partner is Magnesium Breakthrough by BiOptimizers. This is the magnesium product that I take, so I'm very pleased that it is my podcast partner on Zestology. It is the only organic, that's important to me, full spectrum magnesium supplement that includes 7 unique forms of magnesium. And really, I could wax lyrical on how great it is, but I think the best thing to do is just for you to try it. If you're having trouble falling asleep or staying asleep, one of the best things you can possibly do is start getting enough magnesium. But please don't rush to the shop and buy the first magnesium supplement you can see. Because most magnesium supplements only use the cheap stuff that firstly goes through you. And that's, I don't need to go into too many details there, but secondly, it doesn't really work. You don't absorb it properly. There are actually 7 unique forms of magnesium, and you must get all of them if you want to experience the calming, sleep-enhancing effect and the nice effects on your muscle as well. I definitely feel differently when I take magnesium, and that is why I take it every day. So you can go to magbreakthrough.com/zestology. It's a special page just there. Use the code Zestology to save 10% when you try Magnesium Breakthrough. That is magbreakthrough.com/zestology. You'll get your exclusive 10% discount. You get the chance to get more than $50 worth of supplements for free as well. And as I say, I could wax on as much as I like about this, but really, you're just going to have to try it. It is an excellent magnesium supplement, and that is why I use it and recommend it. If you're in the UK, go to BiOptimizers.co.uk and use the same discount, Zestology10, wherever you are in the world. That's it. Back to the show. So let's just finish our laundry list of benefits then. We've got sort of reducing inflammation in the long term, sorting out the gut, increasing the nitric oxide in the body. Is there sort of a short term, if I take it today, will I feel, more energy? Will I have more focus? Is there any of that involved as well, do you think?
Well, I knew you'd ask about this because your podcast isn't called Zestology for nothing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So where do we get our energy from? Energy is both mood, but it's also energy from our cells, right? It's the mitochondria in our cells putting out ATP. And that is dependent on the cells functioning properly. If you actually have a cell which has, misfolded proteins, organelles that are damaged, mitochondria that are old and worn out. It's the same as driving around a very old car with beat up tires, with windshield wipers that don't work anymore, that's low on engine oil. And that's what we're essentially doing, is what Spermidine does by triggering autophagy is you allow that cell to renew and repair itself. And it will literally burn up the bad or old misfunctioning parts of the cell, and it will do that for energy. And then it will take the pieces off that are still in good condition. Say you have that old beat up car, the fenders are still good, but the tires aren't. Burn the tires, take the fender and put the fender onto another car. And so the body, the cell is actually very good at recycling and renewing if we just give it the right conditions. It's kind of like what I said at the beginning with being able to give your biology the right conditions so it can bring itself back to homeostasis. We're just letting the cell come back to homeostasis through autophagy.
Yeah.
And once those cells are in balance, then they have energy, a lot of energy.
Yeah. So it's a bit like fasting.
Yeah, it's like fasting. And of course, there is the savings on SAMe, which makes you feel better. So you've got the physical energy coming from the cells. The mood is there because you are conserving SAMe. And the combination of the two does give people a bit of a lift. The final thing that I'll say is that it seems to be helping people with sleep. So we only know from animal studies that it helps with resetting the elderly circadian system. However, it seems to work with our clients because they write us wonderful comments about how they're sleeping better at night. They're getting 2 hours of deep sleep. Previously, they were getting only 1 or even less. We've had people write in who say, this is the first time I have ever slept through the night in 10 years. So it seems to have an impact on sleep. And we all know if we've had a good night's sleep, we feel energetic in the morning.
Oh, tell me about it. Yeah, that's something that Zora said. Zora, the explorer, who I know you know, and there's a previous podcast guest, and she said a lot of people have noted that the sleep really does improve. Yeah. And sleep's been something on my mind over the last 48 hours because I have my second vaccine. And my goodness, I felt like my eyes were shut, but I didn't sleep at all for the whole night.
I'm really sorry to hear that. Well,
Yeah.
get some Primatine in you, because it will help
Really?
with, it will help. I mean,
Really? Yeah.
I'm telling you as a friend, it helped me.
Yeah, good.
Anecdotally, it seemed to help me get through it.
Good. Yeah. Yeah. No, actually, so it's night 2 now. I had it. So that was the first night. Then the second night. It's funny because I was lying there. If this had been yesterday, I would have had to cancel the interview. It's mad, isn't it? And then I thought, oh, this is never going to go away, this feeling. And then I'm feeling fine today. So that's fine. But anyway, I am going to try it now. And I'm very excited about sort of progressing with it. So
Yes. Start with one capsule and titrate up.
Okay. So 1 capsule. And when do we take it?
Take it with your evening meal, just to see if you've said you're very sensitive histamine wise. So try it with a meal, see how you go.
Yeah.
And if that's fine, day 2, titrate up to 2 capsules. If that's fine, you can go up to 3. If you then want to do an advanced biohack, you could then take it before bed. And Zora, Amy Lamott, Natalie Nidham, myself, we take it right. Luke Story. I'm trying to think who else. Nadine Artemis. We all take it before bed and have really good results that way.
Nadine Artemis is incredible, isn't she?
Yeah, she is incredible. She really is.
Yeah, she's just like, I mean, her book, I think got my wife really into sort of biohacking and all this sort of thing. Even though she's very into natural processes and means, she's just super inspiring and a lovely person as well. And that's great that I know that she likes to use the Spermidine for face care as well, doesn't she?
She likes it for facials. She said that after taking it, she noticed right away that her hair began to grow in glossier, shinier, thicker than before. We have people like Dr. Stephanie Estima who've said that any gray hairs that they might have had are now coming back in their original color. So the women seem to love it for the beauty bit.
That's good. Okay, yeah.
Which is good, right? And the men seem to like it for the energy and positive mood bits.
Yeah, good. Listen, I'm well up for both bits. I'm up for the vein bits as well.
Beauty as well.
Yeah, the beauty as well. 100%. Yeah. So this is very exciting. So obviously your journey's been quite interesting over the last 5 years. You were a bulletproof coach and now you're involved in this. I mean, what are your hopes for the business?
Well, what I would really like to do is help slow 1 million years of aging. If I was able to reach enough people and reverse age them by just 1 year, that would actually have a huge impact on their own health span, but it would have a huge impact on our economies. And back in April here at Oxford, Balliol College, which is the Empress of Japan, it is also our Prime Minister's former college, they held an interdisciplinary institute on autophagy and aging. And it was at that conference that some work by David Sinclair from Harvard Med School, Andrew Scott from London Business School, and Professor Martin Ellison from Nuffield College here at Oxford University, some of their work was presented by Andrew Scott. And it showed that if the United States could simply slow the aging of its population by 1 year, it would be worth $38 trillion in a single year.
Yeah.
You know, the US spends over $3 trillion a year on healthcare. That is over $11,000 per person. Japan, by contrast, spends about 4,000. Its emphasis is on prevention, on natural interventions consistently and early.
Yeah.
Their health outcomes are the best in the world. They enjoy the best longevity of any country on the planet. And yet they spend less than half what the Americans do. Mm-hmm. So if I could move the needle back in my home country of the United States, I would be thrilled. So that's my goal, to move 1 million years back by a year.
Yeah. That's mad when you put it like that. Those, I mean, it's really, we all know that listening to this podcast, I think instinctively, and it's so obvious, isn't it? I mean, when you actually think about it, it's so obvious. Obviously, right now, we don't look at any sort of illness until we have to go to the doctor because we're ill, and it's not the way we should be doing things.
Yeah, it's not at all. It's not at all. And I think that even here in Britain, we think about how the government or how we spend money on healthcare. We are very good at acute care, and I'm so grateful to the NHS for existing to deal with that. But more and more of the NHS budget is going to management of chronic illness. So if there is a way to avoid that and improve quality of life in the package, then I think we should all go for it. Unfortunately, telling Americans to make a small change in what they eat and get more spermidine in their diet from products like natto, which is a fermented soy dish from Japan, or to get it from eating more peas, or more cheddar cheese, which unfortunately has the unwanted side effect of adding weight to our hips and increasing visceral fat. Then people are just not going to do it, not consistently. That's why supplement is so much easier. Yes. And if we talk to someone like Yoshimori, Professor Yoshimori at University of Osaka, about how he thinks we can tackle some of these problems of aging, he will say a supplement is probably going to be the easiest way to do it. Because to get a minimum effective dose into the diet every single day is just going to be beyond what people are able to do. Most people. There will be some, like you probably would manage to do it, you and your wife, but the vast majority of people won't. So providing an easy package would really help. And we do know that spermidine inhibits 6 of the 9 hallmarks of aging. Spermine inhibits a 7th. Primidine has both spermine and spermidine, as well as putrescine. So that goes more than 70% of the way towards solving this problem of aging.
Yeah. Well, I will report back, Leslie. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to hear. I really do want to hear how you and your wife do.
Yeah, thanks. No, I really appreciate it. And actually, your passion for it while we've been emailing over the last few weeks has been great. So I'm so pleased we've managed to chat in person and record this. And I've no doubt we'll come back to it. I've got very high hopes, and I sort of taken on board everything you said. And I think it's exciting that people like David Sinclair are getting involved as well.
I think it's great that he's thrown his hat in the ring and said, he's not working for our company, but he's working for another spermidine company that has a lot more money than we do, so who can, properly compensate him. But he's, it's terrific that distinguished individuals are saying, look, there's merit to this. This is not just a molecule with a really funny name. It actually works. And there is good hard science to show that it has a positive impact and can move the needle. And I'm just excited that, we're starting to manufacture here in Britain. Yeah. And so a British product based on British research, I think, is fantastic.
Well, exactly. And the fact that someone like David Sinclair's, as you say, throwing his hat in the ring, that's going to help you guys as well. It doesn't matter if he's working for a different company. The more that people find out about this, that is great. I
think that's right. Absolutely. Yeah. And so
there's not many places to get it, are there?
No, there are not many places to get it. We're the only one that also has a prebiotic. Yeah. And I think that, the market is big enough for multiple players. I mean, go into a Revital or a Planet Organic and you can see so many companies making vitamin C or vitamin D. I think that, what's important is educating other people that there are choices, that, there are things that we can actively do about healthy aging. And we don't have to age the way that our parents did.
Yeah. And talking of that, you obviously said at the age of, I think it was 38, did you say you had that consultation with your doctor, which did not end well? And how are
39.
you now? 39.
I'm 56. Yes. I was 39. That's the same age that my father died.
Yeah.
And so you really do think, whoa, he was 39. I'm 39. What is this she's saying? 5 years. You don't think about a baby. And yeah, I'm 56. So I've definitely outlived what the prediction was, which I think is great. Who wants to be a statistic? I don't. And I don't ever want to be that.
And how are you now? I mean, having put all that effort and focus into reducing your inflammation and being healthy, do you feel good?
I feel great. And I don't think I would have started a startup at this age. What we started last year when I was 55. I wouldn't have done this if I didn't have the energy to take it forward. And it is because I feel so alive right now. This is also my sense of purpose, my ikigai, which definitely feeds into it. But I don't have those illnesses that I had before. There is no rheumatoid arthritis. There is no lupus.
Wow.
I was later diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Okay, I don't have much of a thyroid left, but I've found ways to deal with it. And using biohacking, I've been able to optimize myself. For me, this is what I say to lots of other women friends who are going through menopause. I'm now postmenopausal. I say, this is the best time of life. We don't have to live anybody else's story. We are now confident in who we are, in our own skins, to live the life we were always intended to live, to put our purpose and passion into the things we really love and care about, and be fired up about the second half of life, which I like to call the new prime of life. Hence, Spermidine.
Yeah. Great. Oh, that's awesome. I'm so pleased to hear that. That's absolutely brilliant, and what a testament to everything you've done over the last 15 years or so. Obviously, the question that I ask everyone, two questions. What is one book that you'd recommend? Let's ask that first.
The book I would recommend is Ben Greenfield's Boundless.
Yeah. Okay.
And it is quite a tome, very, very heavy, but there's such juicy stuff in that book. He has obviously put his heart and soul into it. And you will be referring back to it on a regular basis. I think it's fantastic. Although I would like to talk to him about his not mentioning Spermidine very much. but it is so comprehensive, and I really love that. So maybe 600-700 pages. It is an expensive investment piece for your library. It's around, I think, £60, but I have referred to it continually, and my Biohacking Women's Book Club in Hong Kong, we went through it chapter by chapter, and you will just get so much out of it.
Great. I like the idea of a biohacking book club as well. That sounds fun.
Yeah, let's start one.
Yeah. The book, I think I was telling you earlier that book I don't own myself, but I gave it to a friend when I went to stay with him for a few days. And I don't think he's read it, which is quite annoying. So I'm going to have to say to him, mate, either you read the book or you give it to me.
What you need to do is go through the index and think about something you've got a question on, go through the index, because he really does cover it pretty comprehensively.
Great. What about one thing for more energy then?
For more energy, when I was coaching, I always started with sleep. I just think it's so fundamental. And as a postmenopausal woman, I have to say, for us women, we really need it. We are diagnosed with Alzheimer's at twice the rate of men. Without our sleep, they think it is the fact that we are not getting deep sleep, not activating the lymphatic system, where the compartments of the brain shrink, the cerebrospinal fluid flows between it, taking away waste and bringing nutrients. We need that action to happen. Autophagy also happens up there then too.
Yeah.
So getting deep sleep is my number one hack. It might sound trite, a cliche, but you have to do it. I would start with getting an Oura ring to measure it, or you could do it with a Fitbit. Measure your deep sleep and really make sure that you're getting at least 90 to 120 minutes of deep sleep a night. So generally I'm getting 120 minutes. 90 is my absolute minimum. For a postmenopausal woman, that's actually really good. But that's where I want to be, because I need my faculties if I'm living to 100. And so many of us women are.
Yeah. Have you read Dale Bredesen's book? The End of
Oh,
Alzheimer's.
I read that a long time ago. And the doctor I go to was trained under Bredesen as well. That's phenomenal. That is a really phenomenal book. And I think that, like Professor Dennis Noble, who's emeritus professor of physiology here at Oxford, the two of them both believe that the body is a system. You can't look at just, if you've got a headache, don't just look at the brain. You've got to look at the whole system. And Bredesen is looking at Alzheimer's and treating it on 26 different metrics, which is not how medicine is really looked at in most countries. We're just looking for the magic bullet. Unfortunately, the answer is generally improving the system, bringing the system back to balance, and that requires interventions on multiple levels.
Yeah. No, I love his book as well, and I've got one of the ApoE4 genes, and I've really found that making a few little changes there has made quite an impact.
So you're avoiding saturated fats like butter.
I am, yeah. I mean, a little bit, but not very much. And of course, it's funny because when you and I met, I was chuffing down the bulletproof coffees, loving life. And actually, for me, for most people, more saturated fat, less carbs, probably, potentially quite a good thing, but not for me.
No, that wouldn't be good for you. And cheese, which is another source, cheddar cheese, plug for the Cheddar Valley farmers.
Yeah.
Cheddar cheese does contain spermidine, but for you, this would not be a good solution. You should stick with shiitake mushrooms, peas, Japanese natto, and Premedine.
Yeah, great. And a lot of olive oil.
Lots and lots of oleic acid and olive oil. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, but it's fascinating, isn't it? I tell you, I do love coconut, and coconut's quite high in saturated fat, but that's a difficult one.
It's a little bit different. And I have a friend who studied it in the ketone lab here at the University of Oxford, and he's homozygous for ApoE4. Okay. So he is one of the very, very highly predisposed to Alzheimer's. And he actually noticed that if he had extra virgin coconut oil, the one that is solid at room temperature, that it really put him deeply into ketosis, but seemed to actually help him. Did not seem to be a problem as some of the other coconut oils. So, I could always put you in touch with him if you wanted, but I think that some coconut oils might be acceptable. Yeah,
interesting. No, I'd love to talk to him. I mean, as with everything, everyone has divergences from the norm, don't they? I mean, you mentioned Ben Greenfield earlier, and you mentioned the Oura ring as well. One of the things that I think is interesting about Ben is he says that, he often has a big meal quite late in the evening because that suits his lifestyle, and eats carbs in the evening. Well, I know from all sorts of Oura ring stats and just sort of personal observances that eating late in the evening, it doesn't suit me well at all.
Yeah, everyone is bio-individual, and this is the thing. There is no one size fits all, and that's also why I am so against having medical practitioners say, "Well, you've got this," and the statistics are. Well, the statistics mean that I am just one. I'm treated like everyone else. Yeah, but we are uniquely bio-individual. Yeah. That means the solutions to our health issues must also be tailored to that bio-individuality. So for him, carbs late at night is great. That also works for me. Carbs at night works. But for you, for whatever special Tony Righton reason, you need to have them at a different time of day.
Oh, I wish carbs at night did work for me as well. Got it, they don't, but there you go. So Leslie, it's Premedine, isn't it? And where can people find it?
You can find it by going to www.oxfordhealthspan.com, all one word. Premedine, for the new prime of life, is spelled prime, Primeadine.
Great. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's really lovely to chat. And you've had a big day. So it's time
I've had a big day. I think I can't remember, but I think we've done a coupon code specially for you and your listeners. So I'm sure that there is one which you can add here.
Okay. If there is, we'll whack it on at the end of the podcast then.
Okay. Shall we say Tony 15?
Tony15 sounds good. Yeah.
Perfect for 15% off. Wonderful.
Okay. Leslie, thank you again.
You're very welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
That's it from Leslie, and a quick reminder that today's podcast partner is another supplement, something that I've just reordered. I ran out last night. Magnesium Breakthrough, I think probably my favourite BiOptimizers product. Simply take 2 capsules before you go to bed, and I think you'll be amazed at how much better you sleep. I ran out last night, so I only took 1 capsule last night, but I'm hoping my new order arrives very soon. And it's handy that I've got a discount code because I can use that. You can head to magbreakthrough.com/Zestology and use the code Zestology10 to save 10% when you try Magnesium Breakthrough. And what's quite good about that is that code means that you can order sort of 1 bottle or 5 bottles if you want. But it is something I find magnesium so important myself. And as I say, I use my own discount code to get Magnesium Breakthrough. I really do think it's good. It's the only organic full spectrum magnesium supplement that includes 7 unique forms of magnesium. Also, for a limited time, BiOptimizers is also giving away 3 bottles of their best-selling products, P3OM and Masszymes, with selected purchases. So if you go to magbreakthrough.com/Zestology, you get 10% off, plus you get the chance to get more than $50 worth of supplements for free. If you're in the UK, you go to a slightly different site. It's bioptimizers.co.uk, but it's the same discount code, which is Zestology10. That is it. Thank you for listening. Have a great week, and I'll be back next week. And would you like to know who's on next week's podcast? I'll tell you now. Oh, it's a good one. I've been getting well in to improving my eyesight naturally. If you are someone who wears glasses or think you might need to wear glasses, you're going to enjoy next week's podcast. I'm not going to tell you any more, but I'll see you next week for that one.